Please start. Let us start.
All right, so let me just go to Facebook Live and then I will start. So there is a little issue. So Sanat, you're recording, no?
Yes,
So
yes.
that's okay. We will upload later on. So good evening, doctors, and hearty welcome to all of you for this webinar, uh, which we are going to have today. And let me share my slide deck. So on behalf of Biotexis Pharma, I extend a very warm welcome to all of you for this webinar. My name is Pankaj Srivastava, and I've been associated with Biotexis Pharma in the capacity of Vice President Marketing and Training. And today's topic is role of curcumin in cancer treatment. And I'm extremely happy and delighted to say that Dr. Vivek had kindly consented to speak and share his thoughts on this topic. Now, in the next 8 to 10 minutes, with the permission of Dr. Vivek, I just want to share with you as to what Biotexis Pharma stands for and how this company was conceived. Well, this person, Mr. Sanat Matthews, in the screen, some 2 years back when he was interacting with some of the oncologists, he came to know that, some of the nutraceuticals, uh, the oncologist, medical oncologist, they told him that they do use these nutraceuticals as a co-prescription, and it works very well in alleviating the sufferings of the cancer patients. Now, this idea struck in his mind, and that's how he conceived this company, Biotexis Pharma. And I mean, this all happened somewhere in late 2019. And, ultimately, this company was launched in January 2020. And it so happened that we launched in 2020, and in March, I mean, the COVID struck. So we had all types of disruptions for last, 1.5 year, ever since this company has been in existence. But in spite of all that, I must say that we are quite delighted with the progress, what we have made. And we are quite well certain that we will be the partner of choice moving forward along with our doctors in alleviating the sufferings of our cancer patients. Now, as far as the company's mission is concerned, I must share with you that currently our mission is to challenge the unmet medical and societal needs through a comprehensive pharmaceutical value across the country. And of course, our focus is on helping patients and improving quality of life for millions of people who rely on us. Now, once the mission was decided, then we thought, okay, what should be our vision? So we decided that initially, we will be concentrating in the oncology sphere. And therefore, we decided that our vision is going to be in oncology to help patients by redefining the cancer treatment paradigm with newer medicines, right? And of course, we turn ideas into life-changing medicines, and most of these ideas are emanating from our doctors only. So, I mean, you will appreciate that whatever range we have got till now, they all have come by the suggestions which doctors they had given. Now, you will also appreciate that the core values, they define any organization. I mean, they are the soul of the organizations. Now, as far as Biotexis Pharma is concerned, one of the core value is innovation, because as you will appreciate, with the passage of time, things are changing frantically. And I mean, the type of interventions which are required will have to also evolve with the changing paradigm of the disease. So we decided that we will also be innovating, and the product range what we'll be having, we'll try to keep on innovating. We'll come out with again the new products which will be suitable to treat the various aspects of disease. Along with that, of course, the second value is confidence, because as you will appreciate, we need to be confident in our company, we need to be confident in our products, and that confidence must radiate onto the doctors. So we decided that this is what we will be doing, and we try our level best to radiate this confidence onto the medical fraternity. The third value is our respect. Well, respect not only with the medical profession, not only with our paramedical staff, not only with our channel partners, our distributors, but everyone whosoever in this ecosystem of treatment, of taking care of the patients. We want to deal with them with utmost respect, because we firmly believe respect will beget respect. We believe in the law of reciprocity. So when that's the case, respect also comes as one of the core values of Biotexis Pharma. Solidarity, very important, especially when we are facing this COVID, and we want to co-create the value for our cancer patients, so that we can mitigate the sufferings of these cancer patients. And this value creation we want to do along with the doctors. And lastly, of course, customer delight. Well, this is something which everybody talks about, but we have taken a very humble step, or baby step. And what we have decided, as a customer delight, one of the core values is that whatever we promise, we will deliver. I mean, and we will deliver within that stipulated time. That's our first thing with which we want to start. So these are some of the core values. Now you might be wondering as to then what Biotexis Pharma stands for. So Biotexis Pharma is standing on 4 pillars, right? The first pillar is, of course, we want to provide the best quality standard drugs, and the quality management system adheres to the GMP, that is good manufacturing practices. The third is we want to have novel and differentiated scientific solutions. And I don't have to once again highlight that most of these suggestions, they come from the medical profession, medical practitioners. And of course, innovation is our fourth pillar on which this organization is standing. Now, I also want to share with you that though we are a very nascent organization right now, but we are fully aware as far as social responsibilities are concerned. And I mean, we decided that for next 4 5 years, our motive is not to earn profits. Our motive is that whatever revenue we are generating, we would like to plow back into the society, into the our new product developments, with our medical professionals, so that we can also create a niche as far as the Biotexis Pharma is concerned. With that thought process, I mean, already last year we had started doing something about it. So as far as our corporate social responsibility is concerned, well, we last year we planted a number of trees in Calcutta, as well as in some of the other adjoining areas. We have also undertaken some of the destitute children, and we are providing free education to them. And lastly, of course, as I mean, people in East, they are aware. I mean, last year we had Amphan cyclone, and with the help of some of the doctors, I mean, we had participated in some of the relief camps, and we provided some materialistic support to close to 2,000 families, right? And we felt quite satisfied with that humble beginning, right? So this is what we have been doing right now. Now, as far as our product range is concerned, just last 2 slides. Well, as you are aware, we have got Texcurmin. That was the first product what we launched in January 2020, which is curcumin. And of course, we are privileged to have a lot of information from Dr. Vivek today on this. We have got Texfer, which is a combination of iron plus polysaccharide. For anemia, we have got Texpro, which is a whey protein mainly meant for cachexia patients. And of course, our fourth product is Bioplate, which is Carica papaya, for wherever platelet counts are less. So this is all about our product range. Now, let me, take this opportunity to extend a very warm welcome to Dr. Vivek. I mean, when I got the CV of Dr. Vivek, it was running in 5 6 pages, and I told Ishtiaq, my colleague, I said, I mean, what am I going to cull out of this? Because it was running in 6 pages. So I've tried to, Dr. Sir, with your due permission, I've tried to take out the most of the important features. Well, as far as Dr. Vivek is concerned, though he doesn't require any introduction because he has been quite active in various national, international forums. But still, since it's a ritual, let me do that. Dr. Vivek is a consultant medical oncology and hemato-oncology with Narayana Super Specialty Hospital and Cancer Institute, Calcutta. And of course, he has got a very distinguished academic record. And I mean, right from MD, I mean, he ranked second position from CJSM University Kanpur in 2012. Then, of course, he was also awarded the Narayana's Health Chairman's Award in 2018 and 19 as the best doctor in the Eastern region. He also got the Torrent Young Scholar Award. He was the first winner in 2016. Also, the Best Orator Award in 2016 he got from this body, ISMPO TYSA. And of course, he was also the winner of Hematology Quiz, which was held in 2016 during 39th Annual Conference of Mumbai Hematology Group. And of course, he got the fifth position in COPE 2016 at Cancer Institute, Adyar 2016. He was also awarded the Best Humanitarian Service Award by GSVM MC Kanpur in 2011. I mean, the list is endless. And I mean, some of the other things are like he has got more than 14 publications. And I've just noted down some of the publications, like, for instance, there is a publication where it is on response to oral metronomic chemotherapy in carcinoma of the buccal mucosa. The second one is on a risk benefit assessment approach to selection of adjuvant chemotherapy in elderly patients with early breast cancer, a mini review which got published in Indian Journal of Medical Pediatric Oncology somewhere in very recent in 2017. Another one is dissection of isolated port site metastasis in gallbladder cancer. Careful selection and perioperative systemic therapy may improve outcomes, which got published in Indian Journal of Surgical Oncology in 2018. And of course, treatment outcomes of metastatic non-clear cell renal cell carcinoma, a single institution retrospective analysis, which also got published in South Asian Journal of Cancer 2018. So very recent publications. And of course, Daksab has got professional affiliation and memberships of 11 renowned bodies. He has contributed to professional groups and journals more than 4. And of course, I'm delighted to say that he has been a part of various presentations, contributions, and attendance in many national and international conferences. So with this, I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to Dr. Vivek Agarwala, sir. Over to you, sir. I will stop sharing my screen. So over to you, Doctor. You are muted, sir. You are muted.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Mr. Pankaj, for such a warm welcome and such appreciative comments on me. And I thank Biotexas Pharmaceuticals for acknowledging as well as giving me this opportunity to present on something which is as much exciting and as much controversial, in medical oncology. So, without much wasting, I would go ahead with the presentation and sort of leave some scope for discussion also on this interesting topic, that is the role of curcumin in cancer treatment. Curcumin is, as we all know, is something that has really come up in the recent past. But the focus has been there on the role of curcumin in many, not only in oncology, but in many other branches of medical sciences, way long back in 1800s when it was first discovered. And if you look at the Indian system of medicine, if you look at Ayurveda, curcumin is something that is purported as one of the important ingredients of many medical concoctions. Uh, so, uh, talking about cancer, so let us first sort of try to understand why we are talking about curcumin as having some role in cancer. So cancer, we all know, it is one of the most life threatening diseases, only after the cardiovascular diseases, the second most life threatening disease that we are facing, and it is a significant health problem worldwide. The number of cases of cancers are rising worldwide, whether it is US or whether it is India. It is ever increasing, whether you tell it because of the changing lifestyles, whether you tell it because of the increased usage of carcinogens, smoking, tobacco. But whatever be the cause, cancer incidence as our longevity is increasing, the incidence of cancer itself is increasing, and it is one of the major health related problems that any country, any area is facing. And in India itself, we are expecting around 16 million annual cases of cancer by 2025. Imagine, 1 crore of your population, 1% of the entire population may be affected, having cancer at some point of their lifetime. A significant health burden. Now, just to recap as what is cancer. So it is an uncontrolled growth of a group of cells in the body that fail to recognize the limits and limitations and the rules that our body and tissues have set. So they develop an autonomous mechanism for the growth and proliferation, going beyond their boundaries, reaching and crossing the boundaries, invading other organs, other tissues, and sometimes leaving its own niche in one organ and going to some other organs, causing metastasis, thereby destroying the functions, destroying its natural architecture. Now, definitely these group of cells, that the main defect lies in their genes, and there is a defective genetic expression, and the factors that may be responsible initially are known as carcinogens, and they are either affecting a group of genes called oncogenes, which are responsible for inducing tumors, or tumor suppressor genes, which are responsible for stopping the cancers. So these genes, they sometimes sort of multiply and are carried forward to the somatic genes. Now there is a big importance of free radicals in creating these cancers. So if you look at on the right hand side, there is a general etiopathogenesis of cancer, most simply explained that there is obviously some sort of a carcinogenic induction on the normal cells, either by certain chemicals which are carcinogens, or viral infections, or radiations, or some genetic inheritance, by which the normal cell has DNA damage. Now, under normal circumstances, these DNA damages that are occurring in our body every day are being repaired successfully. But sometimes these DNA damage overwhelm the body repair mechanism, and there is a failure of the DNA repair. And this failure may be because of the overwhelming damage, or because of continued damage, or because of certain inherited mutations in our repair mechanisms. Some there are genetic conditions which have impaired DNA repair mechanisms, and BRCA mutations, that we often listen to these days, is a clear example of one of those mutations that are inherited and causing a repair of the DNA, failure of the DNA repair mechanisms. So because of these genetic mutations, these DNA damages that are there are carried forward into the genome of somatic cells. Now these mutations can lead into different results. Sometimes they can cause activation of certain growth promoting or cancer promoting genes which are called oncogenes, and thereby it may lead to the altered gene products and loss of regulatory gene products, sometimes epigenetic mechanisms, or they can alter the genes that regulate apoptosis, or they can cause inactivation of certain genes which are suppressing the cancers, called cancer suppressor genes or tumor suppressor genes. And the ultimate result is altered gene products, altered growth regulatory genes, and thereby these oncogenic products ultimately
Ironic.
to a clonal expansion of these abnormal cells, which sort of sustain progress, thereby acquire resistant mutations, become heterogeneous, difficult to treat, and ultimately what we get is a fatal malignant neoplasm. This is in short just to explain you how pathogenesis of cancer occurs. Now, free radical injury or the oxygenation injury is one of the important methods of cancer development. Now, free radical is created when one atom or a molecule so adds or reduces one electron, thereby getting a positive charge. And these ionizing free radicals are something that can be caused by chemicals, by ionizing radiations, and this free radicals, they are damaging the proteins and the DNA by stealing electrons through oxidation. And free radical injury is also one of the carcinogenic mechanisms that can be happening inside the body. Now, if you go back to the classical, sort of hallmarks of cancer, the classical paper, we also know that inflammation is also something which is central to the development of cancer. Chronic inflammatory mediators, they have pleiotropic effects in the development of cancer, and inflammation and cancer is something that has always, sort of depending upon the intrinsic pathways as the extrinsic pathways, have always sort of gone hand by hand. And this inflammation is usually leads to activation of transcription factors such as NF kappa beta, STAT3, hypoxia inducible factor. And we know that in various cancers these inflammatory transcription factors are sort of the cancer mediators. If you take renal cell cancer, hypoxia inducible factor is there. If you take multiple myeloma, B cell lymphomas, NF kappa beta is something that has been sort of. So these inflammatory transcription factors are really important, and inflammation is something that is central to the development of cancer. And inflammation promoting T regulatory cells are, as we all know, interleukins are something which is very important in the tumor microenvironment, and decreasing the inflammation by certain molecules are, even the immunotherapy is something that is sort of an modulating the inflammation. So the inflammation is something that is very central to the cancer development. Now, if you look at different types of cancer treatment, uh, there is surgery, there is radiation therapy, there is classical cytotoxic chemotherapy, immunotherapy, targeted therapy, hormonal therapy, stem cell transplant, and biomarker testing for cancer treatment that tells us which of these treatment are probably good. Now, when we have covered this basic of what cancer is and what is the role of inflammation, free radicals into cancer, thereby we understand why curcumin is a subject of discussion when we are talking about anti-cancer treatment, because curcumin is something that can decrease inflammation, that can scavenge, that can act as a scavenger of free radicals and decrease the inflammation, and therefore it is something that has been classically used across different medical sciences as treatment of various inflammatory conditions, as treatment of various arthritis, and now it has been discussed variedly in cancer treatment also. So, whenever we have listened about curcumin, being purported as anti-cancer treatment, there is a lot of controversy around it. And trust me, initially when somebody would approach me that, sir, you should prescribe curcumin as an anti-cancer treatment in your patients, I used to also be, really baffled as to why, this curcumin is being, sort of circulated or, promoted as a cancer treatment. Why should I prescribe these costly, capsules to my patients? But thanks to Biotexas Pharma, as well as I thought that I should delve into the science behind curcumin, as to really bring it for myself as well as for all of you, as to what is the real science behind curcumin and how we should approach curcumin in anti-cancer treatment. Now, curcumin, what is curcumin? We have all been using curcumin in our homes. It is nothing but the turmeric. It is nothing, but the haldi that we use, and it is the active ingredient of the curcuma longa plant. That is the turmeric, plant. Now, why use these turmeric tablets? Because we can't consume the raw haldi in a large amounts, and this is what these curcumin capsules or tablets bring us. They bring us this active curcumin in high doses to us, and that is the reason why we can use the curcumin in these tablets, because there this curcumin, the active ingredient of turmeric, is brought to us in high doses, in high which are purported, which are said to be medicinal. So high doses of curcumin is something that is important, not just taking increased turmeric in your diet. So that is why curcumin as a medicinal product is much beyond the traditional curcumin that we are using in our diet. Now, talking about curcumin, it consists of two phenyl rings which are substituted with hydroxyl and methoxyl groups and connected via a 7-carbo-ketoenol linker. We can see on the right side, this is the structure of curcumin. And curcumin, if you talk about the pharmacokinetic properties of curcumin, it is insoluble in water and ether, but it is soluble in ethanol and propylene glycol. And when we take curcumin, so it undergoes glucuronidation and sulfation by the intestine and liver. And the glucuronidated and sulfated products is water soluble, and thereby this metabolism in the liver and intestine makes it water soluble, and then it is eliminated by the kidneys. To talk about curcumin, what can be the side effects of taking curcumin? So it can cause yellowing of the skin. It can cause sort of this. But beyond that, really, when you are having normal liver functions and kidney functions, curcumin is a very safe product. Apart from the yellowing of the skin is something that sometimes may be bothering, but it is after a very safe product, but rarely has any side effects and can be used in high doses. Now, what is the role of curcumin? So curcumin is reported to modulate the growth factors, enzymes, transcription factors, kinases, inflammatory cytokines, and pro-apoptotic as well as anti-apoptotic proteins. So this alone or in combined with other agents can represent an effective drug for cancer therapy. So remember, today I'm not telling that you should use curcumin solely as an anti-cancer treatment. You get a patient of breast cancer and you tell that you take curcumin. No, this is not the way to go. Curcumin is not a sole anti-cancer treatment, but where it can be a game changer is by an effective combination to other cancer treatments, whereby it can improve the anti-cancer effect. It can enhance the anti-cancer effect, and it can decrease the side effects, and it can improve quality of life of our patients. And we will see how we are getting evidence of use of curcumin in various cancers where it can make a difference. So there have been, multiple attention, immense attention to curcumin in the past 2 decades, and the main biofunctional properties on which this attention is there is because of its antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties, resulting ultimately into some sort of an anti-cancer action. And the main the biologic pathway that curcumin helps us to is by inducing apoptosis in these cancer cells and inhibiting the proliferation and invasion of these cancers by suppressing various cellular signaling pathways as well as suppressing inflammation in these cancers. Now, just as we noticed that there is a big balance between the cell proliferation and the cell death, and whenever the cell skips death because of the absence of apoptotic signals, there is an uncontrolled cell proliferation leading to different types of cancer. Now, these apoptotic signals, they are generated to two major pathways, as we all studied in our pathology days: the intrinsic pathway and the extrinsic pathway. Now, the intrinsic pathway of apoptosis functions through stimulating the mitochondrial membrane to inhibit the expression of anti-apoptotic proteins, that is BCL2 and BCL-XL. So, whenever these anti-apoptotic proteins are expressed in large quantities by cancers, then their survival is increased. BCL2 overexpressed in diffuse large B cell lymphoma, and we get an increased survival of lymphoma. So if we are inhibiting BCL2, we are using product like venetoclax, which is a BCL2 inhibitor, and thereby we are clearly showing that in CLL we are getting a decreased survival of these lymphoma cells and a treatment. So BCL2, BCL-XL, they're anti-apoptotic, and increased expression will cause intrinsic pathway of apoptosis to be inhibited. Now, curcumin is something that disturbs the balance of mitochondrial membrane potential, and it leads to enhanced suppression of BCL-XL protein. So there is decreased suppression of enhanced suppression of BCL-XL protein, and as the BCL-XL is decreased, there is decreased anti-apoptosis, and there is more apoptosis in these cells. Now, talking about the extrinsic apoptotic pathway. So, extrinsic apoptotic pathway works through increasing the death receptors on the cells and triggering the tumor necrosis factor related apoptosis. And here, how does curcumin contributes this is that by it upregulates the expression of death receptors 4 and 5. So this upregulation of death receptors triggers the tumor necrosis factor pathway, leading to the extrinsic apoptotic pathway. So thereby curcumin increases apoptosis in the tumor cells. Now, lab studies have showed a remarkable activity of curcumin and its derivatives to induce apoptosis in different cell lines, by inhibiting or down regulating the intracellular transcription factors. Now, the main factors, the main pathways are NF kappa beta, activator protein 1, cyclooxygenase 2, nitric oxide synthase, matrix metalloproteinases 9, and STAT3. And there is a recent work that has also found that a new anti-cancer mechanism for curcumin is by decreasing the glucose uptake and lactate production, the Warburg effect in the cancer cells, by down regulation of the pyruvate kinase M2. So it also affects the pyruvate kinase M2 and affects the Warburg effect, thereby decreasing the glucose uptake and in the cancer. We all know cancer cells are totally dependent upon glucose for their metabolism, and this shift of metabolism to anaerobic glucose utilization is by the pyruvate kinase M2, and this enzyme is also inhibited by curcumin. So, this is on the right side a small cartoon which shows that how curcumin inhibits the NF kappa beta molecule. And NF kappa beta is one of the sole mediators of inflammation because it induces BCL2 BCL2 apoptosis. It inhibits the cyclin D mediated cell cycle inhibition, and it also promotes COX2, matrix metalloproteinases, and angiogenesis. So thereby it affects the angiogenesis, cell cycle regulation, apoptosis regulation, And it also increases interleukin 6, interleukin 10, interleukin 18, which causes inflammation and mutation. And curcumin, by inhibiting NF kappa beta, decreases all these reactive oxygen species, it decreases these inflammatory cytokines, and it decreases the angiogenesis, the cell cycle dysregulation, and the apoptosis regulation. Now, as an antioxidant, again, curcumin is, as I told, it is an effective scavenger of the reactive oxygen species and the reactive nitrogen species. It also increases the glutamate cysteine ligase and other detoxifying enzymes. And this is again all done by the activation of the nuclear factor E2 related dependent pathways. So, curcumin works as a catalase, just like glutathione peroxidase, which is the body's master antioxidant. So, free radical scavenging is also something that curcumin helps. Now, this is a cartoon which tells you how, sort of curcumin acts on the tumor cells. So, curcumin inhibits this hypoxic stress by, scavenging the free radicals and inhibiting the transforming growth factor beta. So, therefore, it decreases the uh, VEGF and the fibroblast growth factors, because the hypoxic stress and transforming growth factor beta increases VEGF, increases fibroblast growth factor, which increases tumor angiogenesis. Now, there are other inflammatory proteins which also increases tumor angiogenesis, that is angioprotein, hypoxia-inducible factor, NF kappa beta, the activator protein 1, and curcumin inhibits these inflammatory molecules also. So, therefore, it decreases the tumor angiogenesis. Now, uh, whenever there is invasion of these tumor cells and they're metastasizing, so extracellular matrix degradation by the matrix metalloproteinases and the uroplasmin activator is also very important for metastasis, and curcumin inhibits these products also. And for establishment of metastasis, that is the tumor cells which go and get adhered to other surface, so they utilize these surface molecules like beta catenin, these ICAM, VCAM, E-selectin, and curcumin inhibits these molecules also, thereby it inhibits the metastasis also. So curcumin helps in decreasing the invasion, decreasing the transgradation of these cells, decreases tumor angiogenesis, and decreases metastasis. So there are properties of curcumin which helps in many important steps of tumor establishment, tumor invasion, tumor metastasis. Now, these are the main molecular targets of curcumin, and we can see that curcumin inhibits multiple transcription factors, multiple growth factors, decreases many inflammatory cytokines. It affects many apoptotic proteins, thereby improving apoptosis. It inhibits protein kinases. It acts on many receptors, and it also acts on cell survival and proliferative proteins. So these are main molecular targets of curcumin. They are many, and this is something of late recently being published in one of the important journals called Nutrients. Now we go to certain review articles as to what they are saying about curcumin, and this is one of the review articles that was published in 2006, which tells that curcumin at the molecular level targets numerous pathways, which highlights its ability to inhibit carcinogenesis at multiple levels and circumventing the development of resistance to treatment. And clinical trials with curcumin indicate that it is safe, it is tolerable, it is non-toxic, even up to doses of 8 grams per day, and it is efficacious. The same review article also states that the development of formulations of curcumin in the form of nanoparticles, liposomes, micelles, or phospholipid complexes enhances its bioavailability and efficacy. And curcumin has established itself as a safe and promising molecule for the prevention and therapy of not only of cancer but also inflammation-driven other diseases. This is another article from Wisconsin School of Pharmacy, and which states that there are multiple clinical trials being conducted in colon cancer and are attempting to answer basic questions like safety, tolerability, pharmacokinetic, and pharmacodynamic issues. And they have concluded that curcumin is safe and poses minimal adverse events, and in doses up to 8 grams per day, curcumin was very well tolerated and has evidence that suggests that some patients have displayed a pathological change in the disease. This is another publication in molecular biology, which talks about modulation of apoptosis related cell signaling pathways by curcumin as a strategy to inhibit tumor progression. So it talks about resistance to apoptosis as a hallmark of cancer, and how inducing apoptosis in malignant cells is one of the most challenging tasks regarding cancer. And curcumin, which is the polyphenolic derivative of turmeric, it's a natural compound which has greatly attracted the interest in cancer during the last half century. And it has revealed that curcumin has chemopreventive properties. These properties are mainly due to its ability to arrest cell cycle and induce apoptosis in cancer cells, and which is either alone or in combination with chemotherapeutic agents or radiation. And this is by regulating multiple important cell signaling pathways, including NF-kappa beta, TRAIL, PI3K-AKT pathway, JAK state pathway, Notch1 pathway, and JNK. And it is also known to activate cell death signals and induce apoptosis in the pre-cancer or cancerous cells without affecting normal cells. Thereby, there are various phase 1 and phase 2 clinical trials which indicate that curcumin is quite safe and may exhibit therapeutic efficacy. Now, this is taken from one of the recent review articles which looked at the characteristic of how curcumin has sort of been extracted in the studies, and how we have had the curcumin, the growth of curcumin in cancers. So right starting from 2013, we had a study where curcumin usage was shown in around 40 patients of where cancers, whereby in prostate cancer patients there were decrease in the severity of urinary symptoms when it was taken at 3 gram per day. Now there was another study which showed curcumin reduces side effects of cancer treatment when it was taken in 80 patients with soy. Curcumin was seen to lower the concentration of CEA in colon cancer cells. It was also shown to reduce skin complications of radiation in a 2013 study. In a 2011 study in Japan, in 22 patients, by using 8 grams of curcumin per day, they showed that curcumin increased survival of patients. And again, another study in 2011 in Iran showed that it decreases skin problems. There was another study in UK that showed that curcumin reduced glutathione S transferase activity. And another study showed it increased the effectiveness of colon and reduced the gut symptoms in colon cancer. There was also a study in UK which showed that curcumin reduces prostaglandin E2 production. And another small study showed that curcumin reduced the number and size of colon polyps without any significant toxicity. There was a large study in China in 2010, 126 patients, which showed that curcumin improves the overall quality of health in patients with colorectal cancer. And curcumin reduced lipid peroxidation and increased glutathione content in another study in India. Another study in US showed that curcumin was well tolerated, limited absorption, and showed activity in some patients. And there was a study in Japan which showed that it reduced the serum PSA levels in combination with isoflavones in patients of prostate cancer. Another study which showed that it decreased the urinary excretion of mutagens in smokers. So in smokers, curcumin intake was shown to decrease the mutagenesis, and it also reduced the number of micronuclei in mucosal cells and in lymphocytes in a study in India, improved precancerous lesions in a study in Taiwan, and it showed there was high doses used in low doses. It was used in 100 to 300 milligrams, but there was no variation in tumor size. And in another study by Lyon in UK, it showed that it was a safe and tolerable adjunct to FOLFOX chemotherapy in patients with metastatic colorectal cancer. So a lot of studies that have summarized that have used curcumin. Now, another molecule, another way in which a curcumin can be used as an anti-inflammatory in prevention of mucositis. Mucositis is something that we see as a common side effect in high-dose cancer chemotherapy in our transplant patients. Whenever high-dose chemotherapy is being used in radiation, and this mucositis is something that is very much affects the nutrition, very much decreases the quality of life, increases the chances of infections, and causes a lot of pain. And there is a lot of symptoms because of these mucositis, like dry mouth, swollen and red gums, increased mucus, blood in mouth, sores in mouth, pain, burning sensation, trouble while eating. And the MASCC guidelines as well as the supportive care guidelines have showed that use of various other treatments like cryotherapy by ice chips, all these are there. But curcumin is also one of the uh, important molecules that can reduce the grade of mucositis, can reduce erythema, pain, and ulceration, and it is effective in controlling signs and symptoms of oral mucositis. So, any cancer chemotherapy related severe mucositis or radiation related mucositis, curcumin is one thing that can act. And this is one of the recently published meta-analysis which looked at the prophylactic and therapeutic effect of curcumin on treatment-induced oral mucositis in patients of head and neck cancer. Now, it looked at six studies involving 266 patients, and curcumin considerably reduced the weight loss in both prophylactic and therapeutic phases. And curcumin reduced the severity of oral mucositis compared to chlorhexidine. This is another study which was published in 2019, which looked at the oral administration of nanomycel curcumin in the prevention of radiotherapy-induced mucositis in head and neck cancer. So, in this clinical trial, 32 head and neck cancer patients were allocated to case and control groups and respectively reduced nanocurcumin or placebo during radiotherapy. And this study found a significant difference in the severity of mucositis between the two groups at all visits. So, in contrast to the control group of patients who received placebo, who all developed oral mucositis in the second week of radiotherapy, only 32% of the case group patients developed oral mucositis in the second week with no obvious or systemic side effects. So this data shows that curcumin can be a very effective agent in preventing oral mucositis and reducing its severity in head and neck cancer patients receiving radiotherapy. Now let us come to our own Indian study, which was conducted at the BMT unit in ACTREC by Dr. Naveen Khatri. I have been fortunate to be a part of this study when I was a resident, and we were administering a curcumin to our autologous transplant patients to see whether it was decreasing the cytokine levels involved in mucositis in autologous transplant setting. So this study was published in 2012, and after publishing this small study, which was titled that curcumin decreases cytokine levels involved in mucositis in autologous transplant, a pharmacokinetic and pharmacodynamic study. So the background of this study is simple, that it is inevitable complication. Mucositis is an inevitable complication of autologous transplant, whereby there is intensive chemotherapy is being used, and the incidence is reported in 90% of patients. The pro-inflammatory cytokines such as interleukin 1, interleukin 6, interleukin 8, 17, tumor necrosis factor alpha, transforming growth factor beta, interferon gamma, and prostaglandin E2 play a central role in the pathogenesis. And there is evidence that curcumin inhibits these inflammatory cytokines through inhibition of nuclear factor kappa beta. Now, there were no studies which were exploring the role of curcumin in mucositis in patients undergoing high dose chemotherapy. And this study looked at the pharmacokinetic and pharmacodynamics of curcumin in this setting and evaluated the effect of curcumin on mucositis after high dose chemotherapy in autologous transplant. So this was a prospective single center pilot pharmacokinetic pharmacodynamic study evaluated the role of curcumin, and the patients in both the groups had multiple myeloma and they received melphalan 200 milligram per meter square. Now, this study was done in two phases. One was a run in phase control group to measure the level of cytokines in 10 patients without the use of oral curcumin, followed by a treatment phase where next 10 patients received curcumin lozenges. And in these patients, they measured the blood as well as the saliva levels of different inflammatory cytokines like tumor necrosis factor alpha, interleukin 1, 6, 8, 17, transforming growth factor beta, interferon gamma, and prostaglandin E2. And these cytokines were measured 1 hour before starting melphalan on day 0, and then thrice weekly on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday till day 14, and then on day 28 of transplant. A patient in treatment phase received chewable curcumin lozenges, which was 4 gram twice daily from 2 days prior to start of melphalan till day 28. So almost 30 days of curcumin at the dose of 8 grams per day was given, and blood samples which was related to curcumin were done 1 hour prior to the first dose, and then at subsequently every half an hour post the first dose, and then weekly till day 28 to confirm that blood curcumin levels are there. And blood and saliva samples of cytokines were also taken 1 hour prior to the first dose of curcumin, and then at the same time points as in the run-in phase. Now, the plasma levels of curcumin and its glucuronide conjugate were measured by HPLC, and cytokines were measured by ELISA. And the AUC for curcumin and its conjugates and cytokines were determined by linear trapezoid rule, and the duration and the grade of oral mucositis and diarrhea was documented as per the WHO and the CTCAE 3.0 grading criteria. Respectively, they were recorded and compared by in the two groups by the Fisher exact test. And the median AUC and the median levels of serum and salivary cytokine different time points were also compared by Mann-Whitney test. Now, these are the results. So 19 patients were evaluable. In control group, there were 10 patients, and the curcumin group, there were 9 patients. And there was no difference in the baseline demographic characteristics. 6 patients in the control group had grade 3 or 4 oral mucositis, while 3 patients in the curcumin group had a grade 3 or 4 oral mucositis with a median duration of 5.5 days versus 3 days, respectively. So we can see that curcumin decreased the incidence of grade 3 and 4 mucositis as well as the reduced the severity and duration of the mucositis also. Now, 7 patients in the control group had grade 3 and grade 4 diarrhea, and only 3 patients in the curcumin group had a grade 3 or grade 4 diarrhea. And the duration of grade 3 of grade 4 diarrhea was also less, that was 2 days as against 8 days. So there was no difference in the baseline serum and salivary levels of cytokines between the groups, but there was a significant difference observed in the interleukin 6, 8, 17 transforming growth factor beta and prostaglandin levels at the various time points between the curcumin and the control group. So we can clearly see that in the curcumin group, the median concentration of these cytokines is almost less, very, very zero as compared to the control group. And the prostaglandin E2 levels is also very less as compared to the control group. And there is a significant statistical difference in the in the level of cytokines. Here also we can see that the curcumin group post transplant also has significantly lesser concentration of these inflammatory cytokines as compared to the control group. So the study concluded that curcumin significantly altered the serum and salivary profiles of some cytokines involved in mucositis, and higher exposure to curcumin was found to reduce the duration of severe mucositis. Now, a larger phase 2 is warranted to confirm these findings. And yes, Dr. Naveen Khatri and group is conducting a large study, which is, expected to complete in 2023. So the study is being carried out in the bone marrow transplant unit of ACTRAC on high dose curcumin in preventing autologous transplant related mucositis. If you talk about other recent trials with curcumin, so these are, the recent trials that are being conducted. So in breast cancer, they are looking at curcumin for invasive breast cancer in primary tumors. There is a trial of curcumin with paclitaxel where they are looking at the improve in the efficacy of patients with advanced breast cancer. In prostate cancer, they are looking at the role of curcumin in preventing the progression of low risk prostate cancer patients who are undergoing active surveillance. In uterine as well as cervical cancers, they are looking at a curcumin, including a cocktail, immunomodulatory cocktail, which is being combined with pembrolizumab with radiation in order to see how this is going. This is called the PRIMO trial, and this is, expected to be completing next year in June 2022. This is in short. We can see number of blood cancers. We'll talk about leukemia, lymphoma, lung cancer, multiple myeloma, brain tumors, pancreatic cancer, and we see that there is down regulation and modulation of various pro-inflammatory cytokines in various cancers by curcumin. Even in the CML, if there is there is a resistance to imatinib, there is good evidence that curcumin can decrease this imatinib resistance and improve imatinib entry into the cells. Again, the National Cancer Institute website, and we can see numerous clinical trials on curcumin in patients of prostate cancer, in high grade cervical intraepithelial neoplasias, curcumin and ursolic acid for treatment of prostate cancer, in treatment of patients with CIN, in to prevent its progression to cervical cancer, and curcumin in reducing joint pain in breast cancer survivors who are having aromatase inhibitor induced joint disease. So again, a very interesting study. Aromatase inhibitor induced joint pain is something that we commonly see, and curcumin is being studied in order to reduce this joint pain. So this is, so there are so many numerous trials, so many numerous small evidences that are there regarding curcumin. So if given a time, we could go on and on. So I would right stop there on talking about the scientific evidence on curcumin. I will just talk in short about the molecule that is bought out by Biotexas Pharma, that is Texcarmin. So this Texcarmin, as we have seen, it works as an anti-inflammatory and antioxidant, blocks the NF kappa beta transcription factor, and decreases the free radicals, and it can be used as an important co-prescription molecule along with anti-cancer drugs. It relieves to patients suffering from mucositis. So where can we really use curcumin, that is this Texcarmin, is as an adjunct to cancer treatment. When we are seeing that there are patients who are progressing on multiple lines of treatment, we can add curcumin to see if there is improved effect. And when the patients are having precancerous conditions, cervical intraepithelial neoplasias or oral leukoplakias, curcumin can sort of prevent the progression to cancer. There may be a role of curcumin. Again, radiation induced mucositis, chemotherapy induced mucositis, curcumin can improve mucositis, can decrease cytokines. And our own study from Tata Hospital Mumbai, from ACTRAC bone BMT unit, has shown that this is a reality. There is good evidence to this effect. uh, and why Texcarmin from Texas? So because it has the best quality with GMP standards, and then it has nanoparticle curcumin with piperine for better bioavailability and better better absorption. We know that curcumin is something that has less bioavailability, and that is why it needs to be given in high doses, and that is why we can use Texcarmin because it is combined with piperine for better bioavailability. It is available in 500 milligram capsules and syrup, and the doses are as per you can use up to 4 capsules 4 times daily also, and it is also available in syrup, and every 5 ml contains 500 milligram curcumin longa. So these are my take home messages. Texcarmin can be used as a co-prescription along with chemotherapy and radiation. Evidence suggests that it works as a potent antioxidant, anti-inflammatory. It can be used as a prophylactic treatment in different precancerous condition, as well as in prophylactic as well as therapeutic effect in mucositis. And it is available in Texcarmin as a nanoparticle along with piperine, and whereby it increases bioavailability, and it is manufactured in a GMP certified plant to ensure quality. And my sincere thanks to Biotexus for giving me this opportunity. And my request to them is that probably the way forward to sort of take Texcarmin into clinical practice is to encourage local practitioner based clinical trials in our setting, whereby we can sort of prove by certain clinical trials as to how curcumin is improving the clinical efficacy of treatment and decreasing the toxicities. And the way forward is by conducting small but real clinical trials. And this is how probably the way forward is. With this, I thank you all, and I'm open for any interaction if it is there. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dr. Vivek. And Vivek is here in case anybody would like to interact with him. I'll request if you can switch on your cameras, it will be nice so that we can interact in a much better way.
Yeah, I
So,
think, yeah, if there are no further questions, then, maybe we can close the session.
yeah, but there is one thing I just wanted to cross check with you. I mean, you have shared the Prima trial as well as the Tata Institute Hospital, the trial which you have referred. Uh, that gives me some idea as to, there have been quite a significant number of trials. Maybe the large scale trials are not there, where
Yeah.
we have got some, 1,000 or 2,000 patients, but there are still quite a good number of trials which have already been conducted on curcumin and which has shown significantly decent amount of benefits.
Yeah. So I think the key message is that the evidence is already there, but it is in small quantities and small trials. So
True,
there is not a large trial,
true.
and curcumin is something that has to be marketed as an adjunct to treatment, rather than sort of as a cancer treatment.
Sure,
So
sure.
in Ayurvedic practice, probably they are purporting curcumin as an anti-cancer. And if you go into searching, there are many websites that are promoting curcumin as a sole anti-cancer treatment. So that is probably not the way to go.
True, true.
The way to go is to sort of promote anti curcumin as an adjunct to cancer treatment, whereby we
Absolutely.
can look at this curcumin to improve the clinical efficacy of our anti-cancer treatment and decrease the side effects of anti-cancer treatment. This is where I think curcumin can play a major role, and there is small evidence of use of curcumin into it. But the way forward is to engage into local clinical trials. So
Sure.
if you can engage into small local clinical trials in multiple centers, and bring out local evidences, this is something that can go a long way into establishing
Sure.
curcumin as a major adjunct to role. And maybe more acceptable to the clinicians to use in their clinic.
Definitely, Dr. Thanks for your suggestion. I mean, we were also thinking on those lines, but since you have also said this, I mean, it further cements our thought process. What we were actually thinking initially. Fine. So, any other questions, sir, from any doctor? Any comments would like to make? Of course, Dr. Sabyasachi sir has given one comment that it was a very exhaustive, deliberation on curcumin. So thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Even sort of, I myself delved into some literature into trying
Yes,
to sort of
yes,
find out as to what merit does this have. Because trust me, anybody coming to me and telling that you should prescribe curcumin for your patients, I was always not really impressed. But looking into the sort of evidence that there, it does have a role in our clinic as a co-prescription to our treatment, and we need to look out on those specific areas.
sure, sure,
Head and neck cancer patients receiving radiotherapy, it is a big huge bulk of patients.
sure,
And if you can do a clinical trial in our own department or some head and neck cancer department showing objectively improved efficacy, then this really represents a large scale use of curcumin.
sure, sure. So any other comment from anyone? Dr. Saurav or anyone? Dr. Arya, Dr. Rabia?
Yeah, I think
Okay, okay. If that's the case, let me then thank Dr. Vivek for taking us through in such a lucid manner, the deliberation on curcumin. I mean, to be honest, I have also listened for the first time, and some of the studies what you have shared, they were actually eye opener, and was just trying to jot down some of the things that maybe during my leisure time I will also try to go through it, so that we can also further improvise our knowledge about curcumin. So thank you, sir, for taking us through on this. And I would also like to thank all the participants, for coming here, sparing your time on a working day. I mean, I know that these days there are so many things which you have to do on a working day. So I'm really indebted that you all have come and you have given your time. With this, I would like to say that this is just the beginning. This is our second webinar, and I mean, seeing the type of encouragement, it further gives us the confidence that moving forward, also we'll try to come out with more and more, webinars, which will be purely based on science only. So, with this, I thank you all for coming and joining in this webinar. Take good care of yourself. Bye bye, sir.
thank you.
Good night, sir.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.